Edwin Markham once said, "We've committed the golden rule to memory. Let us now commit it to our lives." I've worked for a few different companies over the years, in case y'all have ever followed my work history. At one point, I was working for Solar City, and we had a model where a lead generator would set an appointment for the salesperson. And sometimes, and in some markets, that worked well. And sometimes in some markets that did not work very well, where there was a lot of finger pointing. The lead generator would point at the salesperson and say, you're not respecting my leads. And the salesperson would point at the lead generator and say, you're not setting good appointments, not setting good opportunities, they're not qualified. And in the end, the finger pointing didn't really accomplish much, because in the end, the deal didn't necessarily close. And everybody was just blaming each other for why that deal wasn't working. So the company came up with a concept, well, let's pay the lead generators for generating leads, and let's pay the salespeople for selling, and not have them interact and have to worry about being successful with each other. That way they could just do their job and win. It didn't get better, it got worse. More finger pointing, more blame, more lack of success, because we weren't creating a win-win scenario. It wasn't a situation where they both had to win in order to succeed. It was a situation where they weren't working together, and we weren't creating a culture of working together. And again, in some markets, they were working together fine. I'm not saying everybody was that way, but there were definitely pockets where there was a lot of headbutting. I worked for another company called Lumber Liquidators. And when I was working for Lumber Liquidators, I loved their compensation concept. The whole store was one team, it was one unit. If somebody walked into the store to buy something or to look around, it didn't matter who helped them, because everybody was working for one goal. If the store's goal could be met, then everybody bonused. If it wasn't met, then bonuses started reducing bit by bit, because we weren't at 100% of the store goal. If it was met, everybody got a bonus. Every single person on the team received a bonus if the goal was met. And then you think of other companies, car sales places have a notoriously bad reputation, for being car salesy, right? Like literally salespeople in every other industry says, I don't want to feel like a car salesman, which just goes to show you that there's been a lot of mistrust built upon what a one-for-all sales mentality could look like. Many car sales places have shifted this over the years, and we still sometimes walk in with that negative reaction, thinking this person's just after their commission. So we start to look at what can a company do to change that. If we're offering an incentive trip and only one person in the whole office could win this trip to, Bermuda, Bahamas, come on pretty mama, right? If there's only one person that could win that trip, you're not fostering a culture of cooperation. You're fostering a culture of competitiveness, right? So you can't change your fruit without changing the root. So you have to look deep down to figure out what it is that you are fostering in yourself, in your interactions with others, and work on changing that principle, that paradigm, those values, in order to start looking at others and changing yourself. So, paradigms of human interaction. We've got a few to talk about. First off, we have the paradigm of win-win. That is where you've got a frame of mind that constantly is looking for a mutual benefit to others, where you want to know that the action that you are taking, the deal that you are making, is going to benefit not only yourself, but the person that you are dealing with. You're not trying to rip anybody off. You're not trying to lose yourself. You want a win-win. Then you've got win-lose. This is actually where most of us live. Most of us have grown up in a win-lose. We feel like we need to work hard for that first place. When we the valedictorian, first place in a race, first place in a sporting competition. Sometimes we feel we need to work hard to earn love instead of having that intrinsic value in ourselves, that if we aren't working very hard to make sure that we're competing with our brothers and sisters, like we won't be number one, we won't be that favorite child. Then you have your lose-win. So a lose-win scenario is the opposite, and that's where you don't feel intrinsic value. In fact, you don't feel it so much that you don't think anything you can do is going to get it for you, that you automatically are the loser and everybody else is going to win. Now, sometimes that can be okay, right? Like where you want to be the peacemaker, and being the peacemaker, you give up your victory just to have peace. But that can go too far. Sometimes your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. It can go too far if you're letting yourself be a stepping stone and you're giving up your own values to allow somebody else to win. Then you have your lose-lose scenario. So a lose-lose is when you have two win-losers. So you have two people that will do whatever it takes to win, and it doesn't matter who loses. When you have two people that'll do whatever it takes to win and it doesn't matter who loses, you can't win. It's impossible for both people to win, right? Somebody might say, well, I'm the better win loser. So if I'm a better win loser, then the other person will lose. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Because if you're a win loser and they're a win loser, if they lose, you've hurt that relationship. Right? That's that emotional bank account we were talking about yesterday. You just made a huge withdrawal. They lost. They're a loser. You might not be able to make that back up. You may have ruined a relationship, may have ruined that trust, depending on what the win-loss was involving. And then you have win. Those are the people that don't care if there's a loser. It doesn't really matter to them. All they're worried about is making sure that they do what it takes to win. They will go about their day doing everything they need to do to make sure that they have won. And it doesn't matter what's happening with anybody else. They're on their own. They can win if they want to, doing their own actions, or they could lose. It doesn't matter, right? Like, you do you, boo, and I'll do me, and we'll have some fun. So, which is the best out of these scenarios? Which one is the best? It depends. Win-win initially seems like a great idea, and most of the time it could be. I had a business owner one time come to me, and they were talking about how they were having a negotiation with one of their vendors about some pricing. And they walked in wanting a win-win scenario, and they walked out feeling as if the other person won. They took advantage of their weakness, of their wanting to have a win-win, and they walked all over them. I'm like, well, wait a minute, so was that a win-win? No, that was a lose-win. You allowed yourself to be the loser. You didn't have the conviction to hold up and stand up strong enough to feel as if you could also be a winner in this situation after they described their stance. So that actually ended up turning into a lose-win. So you have to be wise and look at how you're thinking about this. A win-lose could also work out, right? In sporting events, there's got to be a winner and a loser. We can't just give trophies to everybody. Well, we do sometimes, but somebody is the winner of a tournament, of the Super Bowl, of the World Series. Like, there are win-losers that exist. So in each of these situations, you could have a case where that's the right scenario at the time. Even a lose-lose, where you realize that you're coming to a place where you could offend the other person, or they could be offending you, and you choose to lose and they choose to lose, because having a win in that scenario doesn't seem to make sense. So honestly, actually, there's a world where lose-lose and win-win could work together. And that's called win, win, or no deal. Win, win, or no deal. And that's when you walk into a room and they walk into a room and everybody is intent upon the fact that if it is not a mutual win for everybody involved, then you can walk away from the scenario, you walk away from the table, walk away from the interaction without having a winner, agreeing to disagree. This is super freeing. It works in sales, it works in marriages, it works in relationships with your children. It's super freeing to know that we don't always have to agree with each other in order to have a win. Now, chores still need to be done, right? Like somebody still needs to cook dinner. Well, maybe not, we can go out to eat. Sometimes a deal still needs to happen, but that's okay. Like we can walk away without feeling cheated, without feeling like we're being taken advantage of, and come back to the table in a future date. There's an example given in the book with a gentleman who's negotiating with a bank. They close a contract for a new software program that they're going to roll out. It's a huge contract. The bank employees aren't super excited about it, but the president is super excited about it. They know that it's going to drive the business forward. A couple months down the road, president actually leaves the company. A new president comes on, finds out how not excited his employees are about the new program. Being the new president, says, hey, let's step back. Let's not do this right now. There's a contract. The computer software company could have said, we have a contract, you need to stick to the contract. But that wasn't a win-win. It didn't feel good. And so the computer software company stepped back and said, okay, take this and please think of us in the future. In the future, they needed to do some more server and other work involved, and they called the company back up and actually gave them a contract for triple the amount of the original contract because the president had faith in that company because they wanted a win-win for themselves and their clients, even though that win-win felt as if at the time it could cause them to go bankrupt. He wanted to make sure that he was doing the right thing for his client and providing for them in the way that he felt it would be fairly to be dealt with. Win-win or no deal. It's a great option and one of the smart paradigm shifts to move forward. And that is, by the way, habit number 4, think win-win. We'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow. Thank you all for the extended video today. See you then.